place in all elections, of course.
Notar wouldn't be on the general ballot.
Yeah.
It would be
We should have told.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was going to make a comment. Notar is on the ballot in some states like Arizona.
Right, but sadly, like, I think in Nevada, even if it won, it doesn't win. But at least it gives the sense of how badly all the candidates are faring with the voters. Definitely. We're the only ones where Notar can actually win. So, okay, if there's no other questions, I can switch over to Renee for the remainder of the report.
How much time?
Hi, y'all. So, my biggest concern was to make sure that everyone left this report understanding
One person. Can you maximize that?
Better?
to make sure that all of y'all knew just how little representation is assembled in Austin. It's criminal. When you look at just the bare numbers based on turnout for the presidential election, goodness gracious, it makes one cry. And then, could you scroll out just a little bit? And so the Democrat and Republican primary participation rate was only about 12.5% each. So the state is being run by a very small minority of people, and that's reflected in the legislation. It seems that in cycles past, there was more of an attempt for Austin to make sure that they represented the interests of most Texans. And they appear to completely given up on that this past session. So, could you scroll to the next one? So, yeah, I want to show the turnout voter rates. Yeah, there we go. Those ones. So, so that right there, the point of that was that, so even though Democrats, for example, actually had a slightly higher participation rate in the primary election because they didn't win enough House seats and Senate seats, the GOP was able to ramrod whatever they wanted, which wound up some really awful legislation. The thing that I think is most important to understand is there truly is a Ponzi scheme of lies that our state legislators have involved themselves in voluntarily. It is it's a true sign of the times that so many people are able to be fooled by these specious accusations of election fraud. It's hard to put into words how angry I was to see person after person show up at the elections committee hearings from these Republican election integrity groups from Smith County, Hayes County, Harris County, and their evidence was hearsay. It was mind-blowing, and the Republican representatives on the elections elections committee dais would respond as if, and talk about like it was fact, these accusations, pictures, written testimonies, had them submitted just gossip is typically was about 2/3 of a lot of this election integrity testimony. So having said all that, that was helped to provide cover, in my opinion, for all the other terrible things that went on, because they were able to. The reason why most parties don't act in this way is for fear of blowback, but because the Republicans were able to force in their own redistricting maps, they are not anticipating any meaningful blowback for the next cycle. So, yeah, that's something that I'm sure was very clear to the general Texas citizen. So, having said all that, if you guys had a chance to read the report, I'm just going to run through this real quick. Some of the basic things, and then there's a few ones I'm going to get a little more detailed discussion to give you an idea of what happened this cycle. So, with our coalition partners, the Texas for Responsible Marijuana Policy, House Bill 1535 of the regular session was able to add PTSD and all forms of cancer to the list of approved conditions. However, as stated many times by medical professionals, increasing the THC level from 0.5 to 1% was therapeutically almost insignificant and ineffective for most of the patients. Several times, Oklahoma's Superior program was brought up and fell on deaf ears. In regards to policing, the Sandra Bland Act, which its most core premise was not passed in 2017. If you ask a typical lying politician, they say, "Oh yeah, we passed the Sandra Bland Act in 2017." That's not true. The central core was to make it police officers, law enforcement, to arrest people for misdemeanors, and they tried to remedy that in this cycle, and to no avail. Even though the House passed it by over 2/3, and George Floyd Act, which was very emotional, with hard evidence, historical evidence in some cases, still did not progress to where it should have been. This is an indication of the power of the police unions and the prison industry, complex. This is something that's going to come into. It's going to hound us again in the future, and I believe we will have to come up with some kind of effective strategy to deal with these guys, because they got us, and the average person just doesn't understand that. Wanted to make sure everyone knew and spread this around in y'all's county meetings. The vaccine mandate, that's still just an executive order. Mask, anti-mask mandate, that's just an executive order. A subject that I'm hoping we'll hear about for the 2022 cycle, legalized gambling. This might be an issue that we can use to separate ourselves from the primary parties. Currently, Governor Dan Patrick will not allow it on his order, simply because he doesn't like it. And if you track how the legislation made little to no progress yet, you'll see his power. This is something, we're libertarians, goodness gracious, this should be secondhand. We need, instead of gold, guns, gays, and ganja, gambling should be our fifth G. You guys heard the term. So And I got to speak about House Bill 19. So y'all didn't hear about it, it passed in the regular session. This is something which, because of the furor over the heartbeat bill and election integrity bill, it went under the radar. And unfortunately, it's going to affect a lot of us. It actually redefines due process in the state of Texas. Now, of course, they're claiming, well, this is just for this specific issue, but come on, guys, you know about the same ACL. They do it for this scenario, they do it for others. It creates a bifurcated trial system to effectively separate the liability of drivers from the company owners of 18-wheelers. I assume you guys have seen the commercials, 4444, I'll bring out the hammer, those commercials. Okay, that's this. So legislators were claiming that mom and pop trucking companies, those poor people, were being run out of business by high insurance premiums. And this bill was going to fix that. But they did not explain how they were going to fix it. It harms due process, sets horrible precedents for other avenues where due process comes into play. It's something that makes clear that the Democrat Party is not a friend of Texans either. Only one person in the Senate voted against it, and in the House it passed. Is it overwhelming number that makes it clear these guys, they're going to be getting campaign contributions from insurance companies and trucking companies all throughout Texas, both sides. I hope to expand on this further to make more direct linkages between some of these guys that are going to run for office again, and to encourage Texans, the average citizen. Remember, we're supposed to be a citizen government. Hopefully, we'll encourage them to say, "This guy sold us out. I think I need to run against him." That's the kind of spirit that we need to have. We need to make clear that we are with independent voters. And pointing out legislation like that, I think they get to. Finally, I just want to wrap up by mentioning networking opportunities. Gosh, there are a lot of great organizations walking the halls of Austin. Met a lot of great people in the halls, sometimes conversations in the community hearing rooms. The list is there. We do not have any formal connections yet. A lot of them were in the course of seeing how things played out, so to speak. And now that the session is over, we may start to have some of these conversations, something for you all to think about. Of course, I'll come back to that when that's ready. And one last thing I want to mention is Texas Gold is an opportunity for us to reach independent voters that I hope y'all think hard about. That's our path to success, making connections to independent voters. I'll be happy to take y'all's questions.
Oh, I know there's questions. Without any objection, we can hear from Donovan, our county chair.
I just wanted to say with respect to the trucking situation is that this is something that we can make a lot of hay on, simply because in the national media there is a lot of griping about capitalism and about, how it's the fat cats and so forth that run the country. And it's important to note that limitation of liability on companies is one of the primary ways that governments turn capitalist systems into corporatist or fascist system. Okay, it is the #1 way because the government is shielding and protecting companies from their customers and from the public at large. And so what passed today is in the name of, as Benaki is in the name of trying to lower insurance premiums. Instead, what they've done is ensured that the businesses are protected from their customers and the overall public. And that is the same way if you look at Exxon Valdez, if you look at the great oil spills and air explosions and everything else, it's the same thing over and over again. They are protected from these things. And we can run on platforms where we say that we're pro-capitalism because we're removing the protections. That's part of the checks and balances that are supposed to go with such a system.
Thank you, Don. And it's important to know it was 106 to 38 was the vote in the House. So it's a whole lot of Democrats.
Sorry, what was the vote?
106 to 38 in the House. The House vote for House Bill 19 Great Recession.
Sean Huckabee, SB 26. I'm actually there's one bill that I think snuck through and I wanted to know if you had any information on it. Apologies if you don't, I know a lot of bills got rammed through, but I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't heard more people talking about this. But Texas, I believe in this most recent legislative session, became the first and only state to make solicitation of prostitution a felony. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it struck me as weird that it kind of flew under the radar because that's such an egregious offense on people's personal liberty. That's not a criticism of you. I was just curious if you had any information on that.
I will definitely look at that.
I know it's amidst the pile of crap that they were shoving through, so.
I tell you what, I would love to be the candidate on gambling and prostitution.
Yeah, that's on the list. It doesn't have a G, but we could probably make it work.
Sure, I will follow.
G strings. There you go.
That was
Sean just announced his campaign.
I did not. I have not done that.
Before you said that, that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure I stated before we left this agenda item is that, having someone there this time for such a huge portion of the session that we've not had before, really all it did was show us how many more people we need to have
Right.
at that building the entire time, because it's impossible to catch it all. It is absolutely impossible to catch it all. So if I've learned anything from this experience is that we need like 100 people who can be there throughout that session to catch all of those things. People who can specialize in specific, sections of legislation, whether it's those kinds of, whether it's the election stuff or the blue laws or whatever it is that we want people to focus on. There has to be a way to build a real team to have people on the ground there all the time in advance of these things and really working to fight them. Because it's impossible for us to catch it all with 1 to 15, and even at most when we were all there at once, maybe 20 people. So anyway, Mr. Wolford and then Mr.
Not too much question, and actually I do want to say you stole a little bit of my thunder. Mostly what I want to say is thank you, Renee, so much for being there. I know like you said, we need 10 more of you. We need a lot more people down there. It is something that we've needed for a while, and it is something that I personally don't have the time to do. I can't be there, so I want to thank you for giving up so much of your life to be there and do this work.
Well, I was appointed during John's term. Thank you again, John.
I just want to say that the sex workers is on my list of the issue nerds that I would like us to have that would coordinate on this, right? The sex work is definitely on that list, and that's how I learned about this. Is I just was up there working other issues, and I happened to meet a sex worker issue nerd. They are not one of us, but they knowing that we care, they will help us stay in the loop. And I think that's the best. That's the only way to stay on top of all that. There's just so much that if you are passionate about an issue, you don't necessarily have to be the lobbyist. You can be the person that helps watch that issue, and that is huge. We need that for each issue needs a little mommy nerd or daddy. Sorry.
I just had a question. Did the funds that this body allocated towards your efforts towards legislative session, how did you find that in terms of, like, were you utilize it all, or do you think it was an effective amount? Can you speak to that?
I screwed up. I was in such a rush to come up with a contract. I didn't do it right. Kate had a better idea, which turns out an accounting friend of mine, who's an actual accountant, said almost word for word the same thing that Kate said in terms of how to properly create. Yes, you're justified. I undersold myself, but it's my mistake, my fault.
Yeah, so you're going to speak to what would be better for next time, based on your experience?
Yeah, so there is a way to do it right, and I'm still putting all the records together so that I can recreate everything as it happened, and I'll share that, so that we can work it backwards and realize, okay, if I just give this and accounting for this, that, in a particular way, yeah, that's exactly what I'll do. So, but yeah, I did it myself, so it's my fault.
So to kind of piggyback on that, so you're going to basically give us an after-action report about what could have been done better and what we should do
Oh my gosh, yeah.
next session.
Yeah, I
When
actually have to
can,
do
when can SLEC expect that?
before Thanksgiving,
Okay.
because, and Whitney asked me this great question. Okay, so how many more people do you need? Well, okay, so let's say I got 2 more people. How would those resources be allocated? Is that a more precise version?
Fair enough.
Yes, that's exactly what I hope to come up with is a plan to allocate the resources based on how I spent my time this past session.
I would ask that if you have specific questions you would like answered in that after action report, please send them to us. Mr. Wilbur?
So I know one of the bigger costs, and so this may be able to be alleviated if we find people locally, but is housing for people while they're there. Do you believe that there would be an opportunity for cost savings if we did, or per cost savings, if we have a team and we could get like a Airbnb that has 6 people or whatever, and not have a hotel room for individual people?
Yes. Mr. Burns had mentioned that. That's something that I think when I get through the numbers you're running, that Kelly asked about, we'll be able to look back and find out if that actually is a feasible, possible.
I've already gotten a lot of ideas, sorry, I already have a lot of ideas turning in my head on how we could be efficient in the spending of the expenses in order to have more people where everybody is compensated and taken care of. But also, one of the things that we could do to help supplement without creating more expenses would be to maybe get a couple of volunteers who would say, you know what, I'm going to take a week's vacation and I'm going to go stay at this LP Texas legislation house that we pay for on a monthly thing, and I'm going to be there for a week. And I'm going to be there, and you put me to work, or whoever's running things, like, put me to work. And because I'm going to be one of those people, volunteers, who says during legislative session, I'm going to take a week, I'm going to stay in Austin, and on my own dime, maybe the party will help out again with housing, with Airbnb or something like that, and we have more people on the ground that aren't getting compensated for necessarily their time, but just be a volunteer. So that's something that I am going to be working with Renee and the Political Action Department for the next legislative session, so we can try to get more people on the ground and be more efficient in our spending.
If you can set up a housing situation, I'll pledge at least.
Thank you.
Awesome. So getting to what we mentioned before about hundreds, that's not a joke. Because here's the secret, while having bodies is great, having the right bodies is even better. I cannot point to this example enough. When Elizabeth showed up for the Senate committee hearing on the medical cannabis bill, she was able to speak in a way with with an experience that fortunately not very much have to deal with. Her testimony was so compelling, she drew in questions from the senators, and one of them was Brian Hughes, and he hates us.
They all.
Well, they all.
That's okay, we hit them
That's
too.
that's my neck of the woods, he knows me well.
Oh, okay. And so, amongst those 100, my focus will be match the right person with the right, so maybe you work in a particular industry. Well, doggone it, I'm gonna try to match you up with legislation or a committee that matches up with your bailiwick.
If you sound like a resource witness, they'll treat you as one.
I'll also say on that note, specifically for you, Liz, I have an email from a member of the public who went to our website and sent in a contact us email because they heard you speak and they want to talk to you.
Beautiful.
I'm forwarding that to you. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee.
All right, next thing is,
It's the thing.
it's what we're here for every November. All right, the next item on the agenda is new business with notice, and the only thing we have under there is the 2022 budget, proposed budget. So.
Sorry, I'm a little hesitant about what I'm about to get thrown into.
Are you gonna just report from here?
Yeah.
No.
Look at that. Making sure. Thank you.
We have some here.
I might need a shot. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I got it. Yes. All right.
So,
She ended up getting the job with Rep. So she was getting the job.
All the producer too, so. Yes, I agree.
That's how it works. It's a small production.
Okay. I'm assuming every single one of you did quite a bit of homework in breaking down this budget, right? Right? Right?
all of them.
Right?
Budget.
Okay. I hope that translated well for the 4 people that are at home watching. All right. We're just going to dive right in. I'm going to go line by line, and I'm going to basically say whether it's the same, it's new, it's increased, and I'm not going to accept questions or comments until the very end. Sorry to disappoint y'all once again. That's the way I want to just get through this. So once we get through, if you have a question, you have your handy dandy little notebook, and you can. But you can write down your questions, and we'll get to them at the end once I go through this. All right, so we're going to start with general and administrative expenses. These are the things that we almost absolutely have to have in order to just operate as our organization. Data storage for Ignite, that has not changed, it's still 512. Website Nation Builder, obviously we are going to be going through a change with the city CRM, but I'm keeping it at $5,000, and the reason why is because we're probably going to have to keep Nation Builder for a little bit longer as we go through the transition, and it's likely to dip into 2022. I highly doubt we'll be able to get rid of Nation Builder entirely by the end of this year. I just don't see it happening. I would like to keep it at $5,000 too, because there is a chance that our 2022 convention page may have to be piggybacked with Nation Builder this year as well. So we're just going to keep that expense at $5,000. It is very likely we will not get to $5,000 by the end of 2022 under Nation Builder, and then we'll go forward with that as we adjust into 2022. Email service, we have G Suite, which is now something else, but I'm keeping it as G Suite because you know how.
Google Workspace.
It is, yeah, whatever. It is at $1,800. That's for the entire year. Again, that's one of those line items that maybe in 2022, as we grow as an organization, we might be asking for more funds to add in more emails from more staff and more communication and stuff. But as of right now, where we stand, I think even with the growth of maybe 2 more emails in the beginning of the year, if we stayed steady, it would be about 1,800. Domain registration, GoDaddy, we're at 200. That is an increase. It was like at 40, but it's because we are also keeping, what's the new domain?
The new one.
Yeah. Texan.vote, which we are going to allocate for another project that we will get to later. But Texan.vote, I mean, who can argue that we don't need to own that, right? I think that is a resource that is going to benefit us entirely, especially with what we have in mind for a project for that domain. It's a little bit more expensive, obviously, with Texan.vote, you're going to get something like that. Electronic service, it's still Adobe, it's not EchoSign. I did keep it as what we have for EchoSign, which is $288. As of right now, our service is going to be less. But I'm going to keep it at $288 in case Arthur and Nathan Watts and Paul want to fix my little error. Otherwise, if we don't want to, that's okay. We'll save a little bit about it. We're talking like a $30 difference. Write down your questions, please. We'll come back to everything, I promise. Communication in that app, email me form, that stayed the same. DigitalOcean stayed the same. And in here, I know you can't see it, but I took out the space.
Oh, awesome.
So we're looking at just online services, a little over $8,000. These are, again, necessary services with not much change in that block. Going on to general services, postage and mail forwarding service, it's at $510. It is, I found out after I did the proposed budget that unfortunately when we went to USPS, there was some sort of miscommunication in the research, and I have been pulling my hair out trying to get information from USPS on how we can forward our mail from our P.O. box to my address because we get donation checks, and it just makes sense to go to the treasurer so we can deposit those funds. After months and months of me coming back going, I'm still getting the runaround. Well, I still got the runaround in my last attempt. In talking to them, I was transferred to 3 different departments. I was on the phone for over 40 minutes, being transferred to 3 different departments. And the very last department that I got transferred to, I didn't even get a chance to finish my question. And the guy laughed at me and forwarded me to the end of call survey. Wasted my time. USPS, it's my ass.
Amen to that.
And so we are going to be paying for the P.O. box. We are going to schedule where one of us in Austin is going to regularly try to go physically pick up the mail in our P.O. box system or P.O. box, and then we might research other things going into 2022 for exactly what we had prior to that without paying $5,000 for a virtual office system. For any of you guys remember that we had with
Regis.
Regis, thank you, Regis. So there's got to be something better that meets our needs. We'll figure it out, but USPS is not it. Office supplies, I just kept it at $100. I think the only thing that I purchased this last year was our new checkbook book, because the other one was falling apart. And that was like $25 or something. So I think $100 on office supplies, I think we're okay. Here's one that you guys are probably going to want to debate, and that's okay. But I did this because it's in hopes that we will, at convention, create a rule that will allow for this line item to be spent. And it's background checks for an average $50 per applicant for about 5. This is going to be a proposal I make to the Rules Committee for the delegates' consideration. I think this is necessary. And for a whopping $250 to be spent every 2 years to save and protect our organization and our data and our bank accounts and our funds, it's necessary. It's something we should have done a long time ago. My proposal is the 5 people would be 3 officers, treasurer, secretary, chair. Sorry, vice chair. Vice chair, we're done. Sorry about that. And then up to 2 bookkeepers. My reasoning for that is because it's the secretary that owns all of our financial accounts. It's the treasurer that is the head signer and manipulates, obviously signs the checks, moves the money, all those things. And it's the chair who has to be on the accounts as a backup for any reason that the secretary or the treasurer is not able to complete their duties. The bookkeepers, they do not have access to our bank accounts, but they do have access to our books. They manipulate our data. They also have the ability to access every single donor's bit of information that we were required to take for TDC and FEC reporting purposes. I think those 5 people at $50 a piece, and I've already done the research on this, it's $20 for a general criminal background check, and then $20 for a general financial background check. And that's why we're saying $40, obviously plus tax, $50 a pop, $250 max is what I'm proposing. Obviously, I would like for this to pass now, because the way convention goes, we could adopt that immediately instead of having to wait for SLEC afterwards to allow for that to happen. The way, I don't know if I'm going to explain this right, but the way I see the time frame and the events that happen, we might be able to, rules happens before officer elections, correct? As I recall. Yes, okay. So if the delegates actually voted this rule in before the nominees or the candidates get elected, we could potentially run these reports and get some information for the delegates to consider before an election. So there's some things that I gotta work out, obviously with the rules to make sure that this works. We got time. But the reason why I'm putting this out in the 2022 budget report right now is because however that looks, it's there, it's accessible right then and there. We don't have to wait for another SLEC meeting to make all those arguments and to make it happen. And if the delegates decide they want to shut down that entire idea of background checks, then that's just $250 that we don't have to spend on the budget. So there's no loss. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, going down to liability insurance, I don't foresee any increase with that, do we?
No, I'm not aware.
Okay, well, it's staying the same so far. Phone service, it's the same with OPEX and Mighty Call. I don't see any increase in that. Bank fees, I think put it up to $50, even though we're not, ever since we left Chase. We are not having to deal with bank fees right now, but you never know if we ever have any like bad checks come in or something like that. Unfortunately, it does come back to us on that, and it would be up to us to make that right with the donor. Website payment gateway authorized is at $1,200. That's staying about the same with the current rate that we're seeing. And then we go back to credit card processing and cryptocurrency processing, which I put as cryptocurrency processing this time instead of BitPay. And again, it's the 5% of credit card processed income and 2% of BitPay or cryptocurrency processing income. It's the same thing that we had just voted on. That's what I would like to see happen for 2022. Financial software, QuickBooks, and CommerceSync, it did go up because we did get out of that $750 a month trial with CommerceSync. We're looking at $15 a month for that. And then QuickBooks, if you guys remember from the last SLEC meeting, they did increase it to $10 a month for QuickBooks. We have to have it. So it did increase a little bit. And then we're going to go to another project that, again, these are just suggestions of mine. And we can debate this later if we want. But Freedom Fest attendee and attendees, I put $3,000 in there, and that is based on my own personal experience on how much I had to spend to go to Freedom Fest. It was last minute. If we plan a little bit better, as an organization should, it won't be as much. In fact, we could probably allocate $3,000 for 2 representatives at Freedom Fest. This is one of those, I think, in the long run, would be very beneficial to our reputation and cultivating resources and donors and talent, whether that's speakers or actual volunteer talent. Because there's a lot of people that are not libertarians that go to this function or very libertarian leaning. And anybody who attended Freedom Fest, I see quite a few faces that were in here for it, they see the benefit of it. So for me, out of my own pocket, it cost me about $3,000. That was me driving, not flying. But again, that was like last minute preparation. $3,000 for me to go to Freedom Fest. Again, if we are more efficient, we could possibly have 2 people go, even fly, like flying, that's not even driving. If we plan appropriately, flying, accommodations, the ticket purchase, and then possibly even a little bit left over for food, or we ask the attendees to maybe pay for food or whatever, and, you know, those kinds of frivolous things. Yeah, Freedom Fest is going back to Vegas. Yeah, so that does help a lot. But it's a suggestion I'm making. I think it's something that we need to invest in reputation-wise. And again, I think that's a small chunk to invest towards that. Discretionary spending went to $3,500 instead of $1,000. And that's kind of I doubled it to $2,000 just because we were thinking, okay, it's an election year, we might end up having some general expenses that pop up that we need to cover, but then we add an additional $1,500 to make it $3,500 because right now, Political Action Department does not have a budget because they don't have an active director. And we want to be able to at least, the officers be able to at least give them something that they can come to us about if there's something that we need to do. And then obviously in 2022, in the first SLEC meeting, we can always add a budget for that political action department later on. But right now, that kind of helps everybody out with that department and our general discretionary. So we're looking at total operating general expenses. If everything that I've discussed up to this point were passed at this level, we're looking at a little over $20,000. All right, IT department, no department budget. Operations, we've moved Booth in a Box, which was a officer's project this last year, is now going to be under operations. It's going to be something that we work together with Nathan Watts and anybody else that comes in to the operations, comes to affiliate to help. Discretionary, this is just for the affiliate coordinator, Nathan Watts, not for the department. His idea is for like a welcoming kit for not only new counties, but yeah, for new counties. So they would get this packet of, you know, this is what to expect. Here are some tips on how to run an effective meeting. This is what you know, all those kinds of things. So that's what he is wanting to look at, maybe getting printed and having that packet kit. So we're looking at our operations department, $2,500. Communications department, Texas Media Directory was discretionary this year. Obviously, it's going to get moved to communications at $500, kept it that. Graphic design Canva, $250. This is something that, now, mind you, this communications department budget is exactly what Nathan Moxley has brought to me. I looked over his proposal and everything, and I agreed with the numbers as they set. Depending on what they do, I mean, as efficient as they had been in the projects that we're looking at, I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan wanted to come and ask for more money next year, and at that point, I
can do it right now.
I will approve it, because they've done incredible work. Storefront, Shopify, again, that is not, the proposal he brought to me, I absolutely agree with, but he will go into more detail after I give the full presentation on the, same thing with the rest of the departments. If there's anything in here specifically, they will actually be the ones to propose those certain projects if we want to go that direction. Communications department, $3,550 total. No political action department budget as of right now. Events department, it's the same for SLEC budget. We're looking at $750 quarterly for the 4 meetings, which is the same as this year, and it's a great number. I think it should stay the same. Fundraiser events, is now more in line with what we should be operating on, looking at three maybe big events post-SLEC, or two. It is an election year, we might be having more fundraiser events, 4 events total, so we're looking at 12,000 ask for that. I think that is appropriate. The argument can also be made that we continue with the rule that we put in place this year, that all expenses just go back into the operating budget for the fundraising events. That does not tie the events hands department, and it rewards them for work done, and it's worked really well this year. And that's going to be my suggestion as we continue on with that rule and go there. All right, development department. This is going to be a fun one, but I am so excited about this one. $5,000 discretionary. There's so many things that come up with development department that they have utilized and done an incredible job using the money and bringing in even more money. So $5,000 discretionary, I absolutely agree with. Donation commission, Andrew and I looked at Jenny's contract and what it would look like if it was executed as an annual contract instead of a semi-annual contract like we have been doing this last year, and we're looking at a total annual of $10,500 as of right now. But again, that line item could also potentially have a rule to it that says, kind of like with credit card income or with cryptocurrency income, that it just increases by 12% because that's what her contract states, is 12% of membership income that is brought in. So if we end up having this massive, she just, oh my gosh, like kicks it out of the park and doubles what we've done this year, it needs to be able to reflect it. But if you guys do want to keep it at that so we can examine it later in 2022 if we start approaching that set number, that's up to you all as well. But we have 2 ways to approach that particular line item and that contract, so keep that in mind. And our appreciation program / member benefits, we have decided to go ahead and bring that together. So donor appreciation program is going to be the thing that we said that is ongoing that the officers have created back in February. But it's also going to be a member benefit. So that's going to include lifetime member benefits. It's going to include like member certificates, and if for some reason we need more silver coins, which would be a good problem to have. And also, if we wanted to do an appreciation event for donors. There's so much that you could do under that, and I think $10,000 is a good place to start. Again, it could come back, and we could be asking for more next year, but I think that's a really good start. So we're looking at total expenses, $66,745 as is proposed right now. Looking at income, keep in mind, this is going to be your projection. I was very conservative in the projection of income. I kept general donations that are unrestricted at $2,000 because we saw the way we have now set up our system to track income, unrestricted donations are a lot less than what we had originally thought just 2 years ago. So it's $2,000. Membership, $90,000. How I came up with that number is currently right now, we're looking at $72,000 at the end of this year with membership income. And then I'm adding about 10 additional lifetime memberships on top of that. That's where I get my 72 plus 18 is 90,000. That's conservative. We're coming into an election year. I would expect a lot more donations coming in. And with our 50th program and our new lifetime, I would expect more than 10 new lifetime memberships next year. So that's a very conservative number. But with all that, we're looking, and I'm going to skip over Legal Legislative Action Fund and fundraiser, that 30%, if you're looking at it, again, that is not a rule. That 30% revenue for events is not a rule. It's a suggestion, and a projection suggestion, and it's mine. It's not Tim's, it's not the events department's target. Yeah, it's a target. And that's what I would like to see. And then legal, I'm thinking, I'll just say one thing on legislative action and legal. This year, obviously, we saw a big, huge jump in legislative action fund and a drop in legal. This next year, with the legal fights and battles that we're going to see, and not so much needing to get ready for legislative action, or legislative session, it's going to switch. So we're probably going to see a lot more get donated to our legal fund and our legal battles, and not so much in the legislative action fund. And of course, we'll have interest income and refunds, but I'm not tracking any of that, so minute. So even with a conservative income projection and where we are with even new projects in this proposed budget, we're still looking at a net income $55,855. All that said, guys, we have the money to do these new projects, and even more that will come at us in 2022, and that's not even including the net income we gained this year. So when we get into these discussions about these new projects and these new spending, try to leave the past behind. And I know a lot of us came from that mentality of shoestring budget, we don't have the funds, no, 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 no. I'm saying yes, 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 I want to give you money to spend. I want to see this party grow, and we have it. We have the resources, we have the ability, and we have the staff, and the staff is getting better, and the volunteers are getting better, and we need to just follow that trend. So that's my proposed budget. I am going to take questions now.
Move to
with
accept.
John Wilford first.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for your work on this. It's great. There were two particular line items I had some question on, and possibly amendment to if the treasurer is available. First one, the background checks. When I originally read that, I guess was misunderstanding what the purpose of that was. I was thinking that to mean the current people in office, but apparently that's for the convention. And with it being for the convention, and recognizing that it is possible for any of those positions to have multiple people running for them, having the exact number of people for those spots doesn't really make sense, because we almost have to do it after they were elected, which defeats the purpose.
Right.
So if the treasurer is amenable, I would be in favor of doubling that, just to give two, per spot.
Yeah, I was being conservative on that number, just to be able to give an illustration of what that could look like. So yes, obviously, I would, yeah.
The second one is the fundraiser, fund. You kind of presented, two options, one the 12% and one the current annual. Personally, myself, I would like to see us wait through this contract a little bit more before we start making it a regular thing like we don't regular processing. But I also recognize that $10,500 in a year is an abysmally low amount to pay somebody to fundraise for us for a year. And I'm not opposed to us coming back, quarter over quarter to reevaluate where we are. But I would like to see if the funds can be raised, the potential for more money to be made there, and to make more money for us. So I would be in favor of doubling that to $20,100, and we'll have to evaluate, if we go above the outcome. If the treasurer's amenable to that.
Is this,
I accept both of those suggestions. I think those are incredible. Again, with my budget proposal, I know some of y'all might think it was a little bit much, but it was very conservative. I thought I was being very conservative, just knowing how this body has reacted to spending in the past. So if everybody is feeling comfortable with increasing any line item that gives us, just incredible benefits like Jenny has given us, like I'm absolutely love it, and accept it.
I have two questions. First one, what are the different colors for the line items? Like you've got black and blue and green.
Right.
Is there any significance to that?
So the green just says, okay, so I know that's a bit confusing right now, but once we get into the 2022 and it becomes an active budget, how I have my budget and then I have my actual. The reason why is because when I have the total for the annual budget, it helps people to know if we're going to see just one payment, and that's the annual, that's what blue is, And then if they're gonna see it, that particular line item grow every month, which again would indicate that it's monthly expense. So it's to kind of help when we get into this active budget, it gives a visualization. Yeah, I probably should have just made everything black for this one, but
Well, that's good.
yeah, I did. And then the black, when I put background checks, it was because, well, first off, it was new, but also I just kind of wanted it to show off it as being new or potential.
Okay. Second question. You listed a percentage estimate on the credit card rate line, but there wasn't any actual dollars subtracted from the expenses on that. Is that like just as an estimate for how much that's going to cost? I didn't see that coming out of the budget.
I can't predict it. I mean, we could, because, yeah, we have membership income, but some of that membership income, I could probably roughly down it on 90,000, thinking that all 90,000, 100% of that was gonna be processed through credit card, but we have checks that are written for $2,000 and all that kind of thing.
Call that out so that we mentally budget whatever
Right.
that credit card processing amount is. And if you had a ballpark for it, that would probably know that.
Yeah, but that's also going to cover legal legislative action fund, any income that was processed through credit card or our online thing.
So we know that that is going to be an expense, even though we don't know what it is.
It's a extremely necessary operating expense, and I think we all need to start thinking along those lines of some of these things just can't be quantified.
Right, I just want the audience to understand that that is, like, the total that you presented is going to be minus the credit card processing fees, and I just wanted to
Yeah, sort of, yeah, exactly, sort of. And same thing with the cryptocurrency.
From the website,
Who's this?
does the chair still wish to pay national for the use of the CRM?
Yes.
So I propose we change that to national/CRM.
Yep.
And whatever remaining funds after we get to national is the CRM. That's all.
Okay.
Kevin?
Yeah, my line item is on Freedom Fest. You said as attendees, we'd be down for $3,000. What's the difference between us having a booth, becoming an actual vendor?
I did not look at that because as of right now, Freedom Fest right now there for 2022 is live. They are just now kind of releasing information as it goes, and as of right now, I haven't seen anything that shows like sponsorship or like booth or anything like that as of right now. I made some contacts when I was there, so I could email the person who produced the event and get that answer soon if that was something we wanted to do.
I think we should look into that instead of just sending 2 people. I think we should have a presence there that includes.
Well, it's something that we could also coordinate with National.
Exactly.
LP National is one of the biggest sponsors of the event, and I don't think that they would.
We're still distinct entities.
Yes.
It'd be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
National.
Yeah. Even when it was in South Dakota, it'll be South Dakota after all.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec, I'm still adding names. I got Mr. Brown and then Arthur, and then keep your hands up, we can go over here on the list. Ted?
Oh, just, another question, but I'll volunteer to pick up the mail. I'm around Austin all the time. So no problem there.
Well, it has to be among the officers, and the reason why is because there are checks in the mail, and we are the ones who are able to mobile deposit with our phones because we are signers on the account. So it has to be either me, Whitney, or Stephanie that actually has to pick up the mail. Only because the donor checks. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That would probably make it so much easier, but that's just kind of the way it's set up right now.
I'm a little confused, I just need to clarify. So the suggestions John and Colin made, are you actually making those changes? Or do we need to make a motion?
We're not making any motions right now.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get
Yeah, we're just-
clarification. They made recommendations for changes they want. Are you just agreeing to those and making them now before we make the motion? Or do you want us to amend later after the motion's made to do those things?
So what I'm gonna do is I wanna get questions and I wanna get suggestions out right now.
So we're just talking and you're not
Yes.
changing?
Not changing anything right now, keep a hold of y'all's notes, keep a hold of your questions, keep a hold of your
Okay, I just wanted that to be
potential
clear.
motions. Because the way I wanna do this after we get some discussion is I'm going to, make a blanket motion for the entire proposed budget as proposed and see how y'all feel about it, and then we can go in that way and see if we wanna break it down by project or by department or however such y'all feel y'all want to approach it. Yeah,
Renee?
I hope that answers your question.
Well, there's gonna be a limit.
Yeah, there will, yeah. That's,
So Whitney had mentioned something that can elevate the image of the party, I believe, that we perhaps have a symposium for white papers. Perhaps we could, it could be held at a university where students, professors can submit papers and present them, debate them over libertarian ideas. I couldn't help but notice, and I apologize for not mentioning this before, Whitney, there were several bills, especially in criminal jurisprudence, where analysis of statistics were being used to justify how not just some laws would be amended, the whole thing should be completely wiped out because the reasons for them existing 80 years ago no longer relevant or appropriate. If I had all my ducks in a row, the Village Department may be able to ask for a budget for such a symposium. I realize it's too late, but I just need to put that out there. Tim was nice enough to mention the possibility of still doing it, but perhaps online. So, but it's something that would, it would be another way for us to benefit from the work in the legislature.
yeah, my suggestion would be to keep that on your hat to use for maybe the next SLEC meeting either in February, once you have a more defined proposal and possibly a director in place that can help manage such project. That's the reason why Political Action Department did not get a budget. Was one, there was none submitted as a request, and two, there's not really an active director that would be able to manage any of those big projects at this time. So unfortunately, we'll have to put a pause on any political action projects at the moment and come back to it in 2022, where those projects will have to be individually proposed then.
So,
John?
Circling back to background check for just a minute, this is more to give an idea of what the policy model would look like. All right, what will we be looking for in terms of red flags on those background checks? Do we have experience that indicates we should be looking for them? And if those individuals pass and join the team, will they still be operating under our NDA? Just a simple, tiny little.
But yeah, it is, just a simple little, details. So again, like this is something I want to work out with the rules department and or rules committee, but also, I mean, it's like I want you guys to chew on this particular thing. And the reason why I mean, red flags on the reason why I think we need to do this is because all organizations operate this way, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit. They have background checks for people who have access to direct funds, and we don't have that, and I think it's really ridiculous. The other, I mean, I want everybody to come together and throw out their ideas on how we think that this needs to be approached. I really do. I'm open to it, but I think it needs to be done on some form
Again, I
or
was just
fashion.
giving you an idea what the policy
Yeah.
is going to look like. And
Right.
we'll be informing these individuals that they'll be facing a background check, right?
Yes, and chances are, depending on how we do this, especially, I know this next convention season, and the way that this proposal might be made, may be very strange for elected officials this next year, people who are running. But moving on from that, it will be a set policy to a point where my hopes that these, like John said, we have the nominees go through the background checks. And if there are any kind of red flags, again, SLEC or the delegation will come up with those particular events where, or some sort of report that says this nominee unfortunately came back with this red flag that the delegates need to be aware of. Now, again, how we decide we want to do this, the delegates could say, you know what, I ignore that because he's a felon, because he sold marijuana back in 2005, you know what I mean? And they want to ignore that, and they still want to elect that person to a position of officer. That's absolutely up to the delegates. But I think it's information that we all need to kind of know.
Right. And a verbal NDA would still apply.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So that's the idea. It's a very fluid idea and thought, but I think it's something that we do need to establish.
Mr. Emily. You were on voice?
Yeah, it was piggybacking on what Ed was talking about, just suggesting that the development department would want to keep the ideas going. And I mean, historically so far, we've raised, we solicited membership, we brought tried bringing membership to build a general fund, and then we've had these various special project, directed donations, designated fund, kind of projects. But there's a fusion move, kind of an in-between move that has to do with promotional fundraising. Primarily we support either additional memberships, asking people to join the party or step up their membership level, or just straight up make a, what do we call them, undirected or
Unrestricted one-time donation, yeah.
That's what I said. Donations in support of, like, so for instance, if we were to make a decision about how we would like to have a real presence at Freedom Fest and food and other tools, then that's certainly something the development department would get behind sooner. I guess we'd have to July when it's Freedom Fest, so maybe after the first
July, but we would really want to try to get that project going as fast as possible, because the sooner we get on it, we got early bird prices, we got cheaper flights, we got cheaper
That's what I'm
hotels,
saying.
yeah, all that.
Yeah. If it's in July, so like in January, start like the process is like, we can raise this much money, then we can have a vote and then do some of that stuff. So yeah, let's do some more.
Arthur, you're back on the list.
Kate sort of answered my question earlier. Rules committee just going to need some guidance on what that is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next big project, was after closing this budget, I wanna work with the rules committee and getting that motion, constructed.
All right, Mr. Wilford, and then Mr. Smith.
I want to speak again. So there was some question earlier about the background check and how it's going to work. I kind of have two interesting perspectives on this. One, having been in the position that we're talking about doing background checks on, two, I'm also on the rules committee right now, so I'm getting to the question from both sides. When it was first brought up to me by Kate, the idea of doing background checks, I immediately said, yeah, duh. But I also realized I have a different perspective on that than maybe a lot of people do. So I want to put a little seed in your head. Hopefully not me personally, but to just let you know where things could have been had someone else been the person in my position. First thing I want to say is, after I left office as chair, there was an account that had about $10,000 in it, a little bit over, that was solely in my name because the treasurer had never transitioned into their name being on the account, and it was in my name, not connected to the party in any kind of way, 4 months. And that was not for any kind of nefarious means, it just took time to transfer things across. I believe, had I really wanted to, I could have stepped that money away and gone to spend.
We would have never known. No, seriously, we would have never known. And we were already, because that was happening, and he had never held position as secretary, he technically should have never even had ownership of that account.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
On top of that, it has been brought up, and I am a person who does not like to down the work of people who are working for free. But it has been brought up, some of the issues we've had with bookkeepers in the past, and some of the poor bookkeeping that have been done, treasurers and whatnot. I seriously believe, one more than the other, but in the 2 treasurers that served while I was chair, and I had a checkbook and a card,
3.
I could have.
I was the 3rd.
Well, sure. 2 of them, or 2 of them, the 2 that were there for the short time, I could have been invested in the whole time and it never have been caught. I believe that to be true. So this idea of doing a background check, I don't think it's the case that when we're protecting it's something that is just so far out it can never happen. I think that it's not happened yet because we've had good people, or maybe it has and we don't know.
And again, I just want to get an idea of what the policy might actually look like.
It's happened in other states. I mean, historically, Florida, I think they had a treasurer or somebody who had access to funds and they ran off with $10,000 and disappeared. And then of course, we're dealing with also data and people having, like even bookkeepers having full donor information that we're having to manipulate for the books. And I mean, we see what happened with New Hampshire. So like there's all these reasons that we're even seeing historically and recently that really, and also at our own fault as an organization, and not staying on top of it, that gives us all these reasons to do this. It's a need.
Alex with SLEC 15. On the same topic, we tend to have a lot of continuity of people, but in different offices, so the vice chair might be chair later on. So when we run the background checks, we need to do it every 2 years on the same person, or if they've had one in the previous period of time, do we not need to redo it?
We can leave that up to the rules committee and how we structure that proposal to delegate the convention. That's a really good point on how often we would do that, or it would be redundant for somebody who's running for re-election, that kind of thing. Those are really good questions to ask and something that we need to put in mind whenever we come to crafting that. Thank you.
And in addition, there might be a time frame that you want to go back on that.
Well, it's based on what we can afford, and I'm just thinking general with what I was doing with shopping, and we're talking $20 for a general criminal background check, and I think it goes back to 10 years. And then financial, yeah, and then that's standard, is what she said. And then I think financial background check is again $20, and that goes back, I think, 7 years. So, but if we wanted to, there are options out there. We could spend more money and really dig into somebody's personal life if we really wanted to. But again, some things I was just, you know.
So my birthday picture says that's going to go in your permit, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to know you through bubble gum and little Carly's hair in 3rd grade. You know.
Microphone's on its way to here. And then Mr. Brown.
Yeah, just real quick, the question regarding the liability insurance. I was looking at the 2021 budget, and it shows us as of, I guess, what was it, October 31st, it showed that it was $1,002.04, and we're budgeted for $1,050. There's no risk of that going up next year with everything else going up?
We honestly don't know because as of right now, we haven't contacted them, but it's been historically, even going back like 5 years, it's about a little over 1,000, doesn't even hit 1,100. Yes, you're right, like I might be coming back in February going, hey, I'm gonna need another $100 so we can make this right.
Would you go ahead and reduce those to us just go ahead and bumping that up to 1,100 for the risk of, I mean, if we spend it, it's there, right? But that way you won't have to come back.
I'm not opposed to it. Again, I mean, if y'all want to bump up numbers, that's totally fine. Again, I went to a conservative approach.
Go ahead and make that friendly amendment to your proposed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I will add that right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions or?
I have Ted.
Yes. Okay, so I'm not actually seeing the reason why we should have any kind of spending for Food Fest. It's like a national LP matter, and I don't see why we should have a booth or send people there. We should have Texas events instead. Like, it'd be more logical to have a table at the Texas State Fair, for example.
Hey, they won't let us everywhere. Yeah, they won't allow us to hold.
But we're speaking to ourselves, and Food Fest pretty much of a national.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we are not. I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, for the 3 of us who were there, and it was my first time going. I think it was your first time going too, right? Yeah. Mind blown. It was a lot of little L's, independents, and Republicans there. There are a ton of high-profile talent, speakers, business owners, donors. I mean, we're talking, I got to freaking talk and have lunch with CEOs, and I'm talking like one-on-one lunches with CEOs who another CEO maybe backed out on, and they were like, I was there, and they were like, hey, you just want to sit down and have a box lunch? Yeah. I mean, Freedom Fest is not like a libertarian convention at all. There are so many untapped resources, donors, talent, speakers there. Yeah, I mean, you're going to see some of the same recycled things that we're used to as well, but there's so much more there.
Yeah, and there were actually, I probably ran into half a dozen or more Texans at Freedom Fest who don't engage at all with LP Texas.
But they were impressed that we had a presence there.
So that, we have to fix that.
And
We
so,
do.
yeah.
I have, without objection, there is someone in the gallery who would like to speak. I do have at least one more SLEC member on deck. Any objections here? Please tell us who you are and where you're from.
Thank you for letting me speak, Chairman. I want to speak for a second about advocacy.
Can you please tell us who you are and where?
Oh,
you're from?
sure. I'm Denise Bicola from McLennan County.
Okay.
And I've gotten sort of active and done a little bit of advocacy work here with Renee and with my friend Elizabeth, and written some pointed letters and all of that on some of the issues in the last session that you confronted. And I think it's short-sighted a little to overlook advocacy today. So I'm proposing to you to consider making a motion. One, if the holdup is not having an official director, I don't know if you can do it, but appoint one. And two, make a budget for advocacy. Those are real expenses. The travel to Austin, and all that, and I know you all have expenses related to the things you do. But those expenses to Austin in particular, they're really a challenge. So I would suggest that you can do an amendment, a vote, or whatever, to do something about advocacy. Because if you wait until February, we will be well into pre-convention, pre-campaigning. I mean, there's some campaigning work going on already. And the advocacy work is vitally important. It's like right up there, the top three things, in my opinion. So that's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe.
So I've got a couple of things just to kind of clarify and make sure I'm on the right page here. Just to clarify how this process works with the budget. We can, as a body, at any time from now till the next budget, a year from now, we can change this budget. We can add line items, we can strike line items, we can do it online. We don't have to wait for our quarterly meetings to do that. We as a body can choose to adjust this at any time. So I know when I first came on board, I thought, oh my gosh, we're making these decisions. This is solid for a year. We're locked in. Just so that everybody understands that. So if something gets passed in the budget today that you don't like, you can always do what I've done. When I want something passed in here, I get on the phone and call everybody on the body and lobby to make it happen. And so you can do that. So I'm not as concerned. There may be some things that I don't want in the budget, but I'm not going to argue against them today because I think that can be addressed down the line. So just to clarify that point. To piggyback off of two things that John mentioned, he mentioned doubling the fundraising budget. And I'm all for that because I look at things first from an entrepreneurial perspective, then from an accounting perspective, for better or worse.
Can I clarify? He suggested doubling the discretionary development department budget.
Which translates to
Yeah, well, when you say fundraising, I think events.
Right, to clarify, within the development department, which is.
He was actually talking about Jenny's line.
Which,
oh, okay, yeah.
Right, which is specifically used to bring in more cash. So when we look at what we're doing as a party, all of us individually have to decide, when we spend money, we spend actual cash, what is that going to bring to the party? And what are our goals? Does it bring us more votes? Does it bring us more exposure? Does it bring us more actual cash? So all of us have our different views about what that should be, correct? But we have to decide on what this expense does and is it valuable to us based on our goals, right? So this particular line item that Mr. Wilfrey suggested we double is directly responsible for bringing us more cash, which we all agree we need to do whatever it is we feel like the party should do. So we may not agree on that, but we all agree we need more cash to get that done, whatever that is. On that note, every October 31st, there's a deadline that we face to increase our state membership at the national level, or state people that have a national membership, because that increases the number of delegates we can send to national. A year ago, I did a membership drive, and I got the data dump from national, and I was extremely surprised. I thought I got the whole country, because I had 22,000 names of Texans that have at some point in the past given money to national. And I looked at what we had in our nation builder, and I was blown away by the number of people that lived in Texas that had given money to national that aren't giving money to us. And if we had the resources, the volunteers, the paid staff like Jenny, whatever, to go through that and dollar for dollars, I can't imagine how much more money our budget would have right now. So I'm all for whatever amount of money it takes, if we're paying someone a percentage to do that, to get on that and get it done. I mean, we could effectively, I think as a conservative estimate, we would double our income in a year if we put people on that tax.
And can I add to that too? That's one of the big benefits of going into the city CRM, is we are finally going to get the resources that Nationals had on Texans at our disposal in order to increase our organization and our income and give Jenny and Andrew the tools that they need to increase our income and we can grow. So I'm really excited about that resource that we're going to have. There was another point I was going to add to it too, but it'll come back to me. I'm sure.
So I'm definitely in favor of that, and I'll tell you, if we don't pass that today, I'm gonna be lobbying you for it and lobbying you for it down the line.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go back to that point the point that I was gonna get back to. And yeah, you're right, 22,000 people who have donated to national that have not donated possibly to Texas, or at least a big part of that. And there's also, we need to come up with some sort of campaign, and I know Andrew's talked about this before, where we need to let people know that when they donate as a Texan to LP National, there isn't a set percent. This is like this myth that has been circulating for years and years and years, that LP National gives a percentage to the state affiliate of your home state.
Oh, yeah.
That is absolute bullshit.
Well, it was the case at one point.
It is not, it is 0%. If you donate to national, it goes to national. We never see a penny.
We should probably talk to the chair.
Yeah, we should talk to national.
She's off duty right now. A couple things. Joe, your point about the budget, passing it now, passing whatever we pass today actually just makes it so that come January 1st, we can continue to operate.
Agreed.
And we have some, we have about
Something
somewhere to go.
moving
Yes, and so you're right, it can be amended, but we just gotta get something settled today that is realistic to get us through at least a couple months before our first real meeting, at the beginning of the year. The other, I have you on the list, Elliot, hang on a sec. I'm trying to think, there was something else that y'all said. I think that's it. I just wanted to make sure I touched that in case anybody here has not been through a budget meeting before, why we're doing it now and what it actually means for January 1st. Okay, Liz, I have you on the list. Did you have your hand up or no?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so Elliot then.
I move to adopt the budget that's presented, and that's it.
Seconded.
If there is any, just be in favor of that. If there is any amendments people would like to do, I'd recommend doing that after we pass the budget, so we have something to operate with.
Objection.
Hold on. So if we have a motion to adopt the budget as it has been presented. Was it seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Since it is seconded, it now belongs to the body, and that is the motion that we're dealing with. So now it can be amended. You can now amend the motion, which is the budget. But it is already on the floor. So, I have Mr. Wilford and then Arthur. And just for procedural sake, it was obviously people rejected.
Yes.
So that's why we're
Triggered
now gonna go into discussion and debate, and then obviously some amendments, so, John.
So, I'm going to kind of do a few things while I have the mic, since, we have a large body here. First, I do want to speak in favor of this. I know we got through the bulk of the questions, and there may have been some other questions for the, different departments, but I think what I'm hearing largely from this body is a general sense of being in favor of this. And if we're going to sit here and pick it apart, let's do it real time. Let's have a motion on the floor so we can pass it. If there's not a lot more questions, let's be doing this business. With that said, I do have an amendment I want to make, and just so I don't have to go to the microphone twice, I'm going to make it as a single amendment, but if people feel differently about the two different line items, I would suggest that we divide the amendment. And that is, move to amend by doubling the line item for background checks from 250 to 500, and by doubling the, how do I get this word right, the fundraiser line item? Is that what it's
Ultimate commission fundraiser, yeah. Wherever the line item is, but that's the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, donation commission.
The donation commission line item to 20,000.
It would be, if you're doubling it, it would be 21,000.
So 21,000. Yeah, sorry.
Donation commission.
Second.
Is that accurate?
While she's doing that,
John?
is changing the name of the line item something that we can just,
Yeah.
Are you
does
asking?
that need to be like formally adopted thing if we're gonna change, like donation commission, I don't like that.
Oh, I would say at this point, once it's on the floor, that's it. I would say.
There would be an official amendment to do that statement.
Do you want to add it to mine?
I just feel, the reason that I question that particular, the name of it is because it is specific to that contract, that it has nothing to do with like single donations. It is only for monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue, not donations. So I would like to see that line item be more specific, because this implies that every donation that comes in is a commission, is subject to commission.
And I would suggest membership commission, but lifetime is excluded from the current contract.
Why don't we just say recurring revenue commission?
But
There's some.
yeah, there, because people could say, well, what's recurring, monthly or annual, or both? Like, we'd have to.
But that position covers both.
Request for information, why did we exclude lifetime? Like if Jenny goes and sells a lifetime membership, she doesn't get squat?
Because the contract was already in effect when lifetime was created.
Oh, before lifetime.
So when we come back in January or December, when her current contract is done, we can renegotiate, and if this body says that you want to give her 12% commission on lifetime, then
Or on whatever she
then
raised.
that would be on the new contract that is executed either semi-annually next year or annually, depending on how this body feels.
Thank you.
Alright, we don't have to change that now, it just,
No, we don't.
I think this is problematic, but we can always sort it.
Is this accurate?
Okay, so as of now, it's, the motion, which has been moved and seconded, is double the line item for background checks and double the line item for donation commission, which is where it's all. So, those are the only two. And it was seconded, I heard. Mr. Perez. Okay, all right, are there any objections to the motion that was made to double those two line items? Hearing no objection. That's taken care of. Those two, and so you will actually be changing those amounts in the proposed budget now.
I will, yes, and whenever we get all of this done, we will, I will post the amended and adopted budget for everyone to have.
All right? If you want to be recognized, just raise your hand and I'm making a list here, so.
So, Madam Chair, request for information on the process here. So we're voting on amendments to the budget individually, and then once we've got that done, then we're gonna take up, down vote on the budget as adjusted.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why.
Don't do that. Make it enemy with Western.
Do you need the microphone?
Just.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, you're still waiting, okay.
I'd like to move to amend the booth in the box to increase it $1,000 to a total of $2,000.
Can you repeat that?
Amend the booth in the box line item to increase it by $1,000 for making a total of $2,000.
Second.
Alright. A motion has been made to increase the line item for booth in a box by $1,000, which makes it $2,000. That has been seconded. Any objections?
Point of information?
Yes.
Who is running that particular project? Okay.
Transparency.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't think he realized that's what he was doing, but, so that was something that Becca and I have been working on, and we had a county who, was interested in having banners, and they're ready to utilize this thing, and then it came to our attention that there were other counties that wanted, and Nathan Watts, as the county, the affiliate coordinator, has a team now that he believes can manage that, and then more effectively and efficiently get those materials gathered into the hands of the county affiliates that need them. So that's what's happening. So it will be under the affiliate coordination department, which now has what, six people.
I will go ahead and ask my second point of information for the benefit of.
Arthur is one of them.
Yeah. Being that Arthur is one of them, I guess I'll ask you directly. Do you think that another $1,000 would help you achieve your goals and is needed?
You get on top of what I just said?
No, just.
So the idea was, well, we had multiple ideas, it's still in infancy for our part, but Nathan was going to probably use some of his discretionary money to make supplies, just like brochures, giveaway items that we hand over to counties and we just keep them, they're things we don't get back. But the booth items would be like table covers, maybe covering and everything, and then we could rotate those around. We even talked about increasing 2 sets. That's why I wanted to increase it down to give us just a little room for options.
Sir.
Oh, we did. Yeah, we couldn't even vote. It's
Okay,
been
so,
7 minutes.
yes, because I was asking for objections, and then Mr. Wolford had a question. So, are there any objections to adding $1,000, making it $2,000 to booth in a box, which is going to be managed by the county or affiliate coordination department or team? Any objections to that? Hearing no objections, it's $2,000 for this. Bob?
I'd just like to move to amend the line item of liability insurance, increase it from $1,050 to $1,200.
Can you repeat the last part to increase it to what?
$1,200.
Is that accurate?
To accommodate any type of inflation.
To anticipate.
You know there's gonna be some.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Original amount is fine.
Second.
Our current premium is $1,002.
Second, I was.
Okay. All right, so it has been moved and seconded to increase the line item for liability insurance to $1,200 in anticipation of any premium increases or inflationary.
Oh, 1,200?
1,200. That's
I
what I heard.
had it at 1,100, so, yes, 1,000.
Okay.
1,000.
Moved and seconded. Any objections to that? Hearing none, that is amended. Kyle?
I move to amend the line item website Nation Builder at the CRM project.
That.
Just changing the name of the line item, is that?
To make sure the fund, after we're done paying for Nation Builder, the remaining funds go to CRM project. So,
Oh, so all you want to do is change name, okay.
Just adding, make sure it covers CRM as well. Okay.
yeah.
Second.
Yes.
All right, so Kyle has moved to change the name of that line item from just Nation Builder to also include CRM, so that not only will we have the overlap, but when we move over, it will still be covered and in the budget. Any objections to that change?
Question.
All right, hearing no objections, that is also amended. Are you going to keep up with it?
Yeah, we're good, we're good. What was next?
I don't see any other hands. I'm gonna hear Mr. Martinez and then you. Yes?
Actually, Mr. Wolf,
Okay.
Not to excuse me, I am going to be a little out of order here. Before I make my amendment, I do want to ask here, let me ask you, do we want to change the name of the fundraiser line item at this time? Is that something we want to do?
I wanted to do that because I don't think that it accurately reflects the current situation. However, I'm not sure, my suggestion, what made sense to me in the moment, didn't really jive with anyone else, so I don't know what to change to.
So we don't have a good solution for that, you say? Or not, you don't have time.
I appreciate it. Mr. Martinez.
I really pushed my right as a, that was.
Sean, like to be SD26, sensing that I think we're all pretty much done making changes. Don't do it? No.
Do it.
Do it. Move to call the question. There you go.
Second.
All questions.
Well, we only have one now.
It's only one.
Are there
Oh, that's right, yeah, you're right. All the motions have, yeah.
Mr. Hall, do you have an
I can
amendment?
do it that way.
Look at mine.
No, no.
All right, order. Do you have an amendment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have an amendment?
Depends on what.
So you have a question?
Yes. So the item for the domain is at $200, which is fine. That's fine. But if I look in that .vote domain, if we still going to use GoDaddy, for the first year is $30, but we get a big discount if we buy multiple years in advance. So really, if we buy more years, we'll get the big discount. It's not a big deal, but it is a noticeable discount. But I don't know if we're staying with GoDaddy, so I could raise it if we want to just have money available if we will take the discount.
You can always change that later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can change it later. I mean, this, right now, this keeps us under operation, like, for now. I mean, we've got February.
I think we need to own that domain in perpetuity. Where it lives, that's way beyond me. I don't
We can always
know
transfer
how much
domain
it's gonna be
ownership
about, Or
to
how
a
much it's
different.
going to cost later, I don't know how much it's gonna be that. I just wanna make sure that we have it moving forward, and that's all. So,
Do you know when you want to transfer?
as soon as possible.
Okay.
Do you have something to add to that?
I'm just gonna say, the anniversary for that registration is in April, so
Okay.
sometime in the near future.
Okay. All right, so, though it was probably unnecessary, because I don't believe we have any further amendments to the budget. And if there are no further amendments being proposed, the motion on the floor is to adopt the budget as proposed and amended.
Move for a 10-minute break to allow the treasurer to show those numbers.
So I don't know, you got some updated versions.
I mean,
They're updated.
We haven't spent a lot, but I mean, we spent probably just shy of 15K of the 55,000 NOI. I'd just like to see what that number is. I mean, this-
I don't
We use a
think
bio
that-
break right now.
All right, so let's go, yeah, let's have a 10-minute recess. Do that.
Okay.
We're back in here at
I'm gonna vote on a set of numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
3:50.
an authorization. We're requiring a majority of the entire body, not just the majority of the vote. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that number is?
23.
Technically, we didn't have authorization like we got last.
So that's amended now.
But we already, the question has been called, but we didn't vote on it.
Yeah, we saw the vote.
We can shut that down. Or we can vote it
Thank you,
down.
Sam, because we were so close to just being done.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to say.
So,
Oh, wait, no, it was, the motion, the original motion was also the expenditure, that's when he said, you not like, or whatever, yeah.
that's true, that was covered before.
The actual motion covers it, yeah.
People were thinking about
All
it.
right. He even said we were learning.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to adopt this budget, which is the one you saw earlier, and then you also saw be amended a couple times.
Actually,
Actually,
the question is the motion on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, that was unnecessary, but okay, yes, the question has been called. Any objection to calling the question? Okay, so,
For information,
yes,
I just want to ask the secretary that we can confirm that it said authorization in the original motion.
can we find the language? What we're trying to make sure of right now, y'all, is that,
The language that Jim calling the question.
I think she forgot to type it, he said it.
Yeah, he said it. Did he say it? I asked, is this accurate? And people said yes. Okay,
Take one for the teams.
I can adjust it. Are we adjusting to call the question?
I could never be second.
No, Arthur, you're the only one who has to close your eyes. Why are you closing your eyes? Just change it to now authorizing.
We can't see
all right,
wiggly rules to get things done.
we are now proceeding to a vote on this proposed budget for 2022. It is on the screen before you, I'm assuming it's in your order form or somewhere. All in favor of this proposed 2022 budget, raise your hand. That's all approved. The motion passes.
Already tried it. Say we'll have a whole beer through the whole process.
Wow, we did that with 15 minutes. It helps when you read these things in advance. Okay, next item on the agenda is the LNC report from John Wolford.
Not from me.
She's off today.
All right, thank you. This will be my first LNC report. I was elected shortly before the previous meeting, but unfortunately I did have some family stuff going on that prevented me from giving that report. So I'm going to go do a quick rundown. A little of this is going to seep into before the last one, but just on the edge there. So first, if anyone wasn't aware, the National Party has been putting on trainings across the country for the different regions. Ours, we had shortly after last one. Do you remember the date on that?
The region center was the end of August.
Yeah, end of August. I attended that, really liked it.
September.
End of September. I thought it was really good information. I do hope to see the National Party continuing these. One of the questions I was asked was, do you think this was useful in your endeavors in libertarianism? And the candid answer I gave was, I don't think it was incredibly useful, but I would have loved to have had it 6 years ago. So any people who are newer to the party, I think great for you guys. Next up, we raised funds and put out a commercial on the National Party. That launched last month and received really great feedback. In response to Biden's mask mandates, vaccine mandates for private companies. We We recently were able to upgrade our server. This was something that was, the funding for it was passed at the last LMC meeting in Kentucky, and that has now been implemented. As most of you know, we suspended the secretary of the LMC. We have appointed a pro tem secretary, and that has
Not technically. We have someone who is performing the duties of the secretary.
There you go. The judicial committee is reviewing the action of the LMC. Last I heard, a decision had been reached, but they are still writing up to present to us, so we have no idea what's contained in that decision. During the very recent election, we expect from our current estimations that there were about 150 libertarian candidates elected. We won't have the final numbers for a little while. There's recounts, stuff like that, but that's what we're expecting it to come out to. If you are not a lifetime member, or you are a lifetime member, and would like to have a 50-year anniversary commemorative event,
Like Nolan.
yes.
Nolan has.
You have 56 days to get it. You have to the end of this year, so I would contact
Me?
Yes. Contact Becca, and she would be happy to assist you. And then the other thing I have is December 4th and 5th in Boston is the next meeting for anyone who wants to attend. At this time, I can entertain questions.
At that event is also the chair's holiday celebration.
Yes.
What markets are the commercial
Okay.
One person representing the question.
What markets are the anti-mandate ad running in? So right now it's on our platforms because we have been running into obstacle after obstacle after obstacle trying to get it anywhere else. Facebook's not going to run it. Social media groups are going to let us run it. We have jumped through every hurdle, submitted every piece of documentation, and they're just not letting us do it. So we are now in the process of coming up with an alternative plan to run it on streaming services and things like that, because that is what we have an in there. But in terms of actual television markets, we don't have the budget for that, first of all. But if there are smaller markets out there that people feel like there are opportunities in, they're welcome to make those suggestions, but as of right now, it's just not realistic for us to be able to do like television. And like I said, the other services have just disallowed it. But we're working on some streaming services.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right, seeing no questions, I do want to make one more note and say, if any of you see Erin Adams, she's doing an excellent job. She's very proud of her representation. She's been working with me, making sure that Texas does have an input in everything that goes on. She's also been doing great work herself. She actually texted me at one point and said, I have COVID. Can you kind of step up and take over? I said, yes, absolutely. Go take care of yourself. Motion came up, and I saw the motion email. One day after it came out, she had already responded. Like, she's doing a great job.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, considering she has the role of being the representative for very North Texas. And Texas. Sorry, I had to accept it in there.
Texan Empire.
Texan in training.
All right. Next item is the next SLEC meeting date, and I believe that is February. Oh, geez.
I'm sorry.
February 12th.
I was just
Sorry,
curious if you had any locations.
I do not.
Arkansas.
Mr. Martinez is not here, so I don't know what's on the, I don't know where that's going.
Okay.
But not where it's going to get yes, Nolan.
I do have an announcement. If I can borrow the mic real quick. I'm gonna make it easy for me just to stand up here, just to announce it. As some or many of y'all may have noticed, last month I made my official announcement to run for Guadalupe County Judge. On November 20th, we're going to be holding our first campaign event to help raise funds for the filing fee, which since Guadalupe County, thankfully the final numbers came in, it's under 200,000, which means that my filing fee is $750. We are running a film festival at Moist Waste Shooting Sports on November 20th at 7 p.m. The films that will be featured are my own films that have been in film festivals across the globe. One of them, Reaper Island Part 2, won 14 awards and got selected at 29 festivals. Two of the films has music made by Tim, who is not here. One of the two films is actually going to be a special premiere before its official online release on the very following day. The event is going to be free. With the donation parts, it's going pretty much concessions, specially signed posters, but campaign buttons and all that stuff will be donation based. I would really appreciate it if anyone can, please come out to Moist Waste Shooting Sports in Kingsbury, Texas, for the film festival. Because I'm really passionate about running for county judge in Guadalupe County. The past couple of years has been absolute hell because it was affected with the COVID restrictions. We even saw a gracious tax hike by both the county judge and the county commissioners during the time of COVID, and also several small businesses saw a lot of I forgot the term for it, harassment by several of the departments there in Guadalupe County. These were some of the main reasons why I just finally decided to run for office. I felt it was necessary. I felt it was the best way to finally have a voice out there in Guadalupe County is for me to run for county judge. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Nolan.
Can you share the information in Discord?
Yes, I will.
How long are you taking donations?
Yes, I did get my first donation from Mike. I really appreciate it.
Can they give you your second?
How are you accepting them?
Sadly, I don't have anything set up online. Right now I can accept both either cash or PayPal or Venmo. One of those three. If anyone, I know I can also can take checks. So I know that if I do take checks, I would have to return it and then have to withdraw the money and give it to my treasurer, who is also the county chair. Who's also the county chair in Guadalupe County, Jared Pollock. He's helping out with the campaign as well, because I know from what he said that if I got a certain threshold percent, that would lead to Guadalupe County being able to get more delegates to state convention for the I think the 2024 year. I think I can't remember. So I can take cash, I can take PayPal, I can take Venmo.
Can you tell your Venmo address, whatever's on the screen?
Or maybe put it in Discord.
If you could share it in Discord, that way everybody has it, that would probably be easiest. That way you don't have to wait on me.
I'll definitely do that. I know that the only bad thing is I got really bad signal in here, so I can't
Just
really.
put it, whenever you can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nolan. Any other select members with announcements? I saw Mr. Brown, Mr. Mine, and
Becca, what time is the open bar start?
6
6 p.m. It is an open bar.
It is not well.
Where's the premium?
At the free function area, right
I
over
thought
there.
you said 6.
You got to the end of the week, buddy.
for ticket holders.
Whoops.
Ticket holders are.
I think this will solve the problem.
You said 6.
First thing will be in Austin on Monday, November 15th. Dr. Mary Brewer on,
Tag, I can't hear you.
We need silence in the room. We've got a speaker.
Oh.
Just speak loud in here and just speak so the mic can pick you up. Speak to us.
Okay, so anyway, if you're going to be in Austin on Monday, November 15th, Dr. Mary Brewer is going to speak at the Travis County Health Meeting on do vaccine mandates protect our health or threaten our freedom. 7 p.m. at Mr. Tramp's Sports Bar at 8565 Research Boulevard. So a week from Monday in Austin, head over and hear Mary Brewer.
Mary's awesome.
Yes.
I just want to, on behalf of the development department, I want to let y'all know that we have a 26th lifetime member, Mr. Alan Smith.
Yeah. Okay, Joseph, was there someone before Joseph that I said? No, it wasn't. Okay.
I rise to address something maybe I understand how to ask. What are the ideas of location for a February meeting? I'm thinking Central Texas, somewhere in Austin, San Antonio, New Braunfels, I-35 corridor, Central, South Florida. Waco. San Marcos. Yes, all of that. It will be Central South just due to, potential ice storms, et cetera. So trying to figure out.
We frozen.
Snow.
We still have announcements, ladies and gentlemen.
This is a fun one. It's Kate's birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kate. Happy birthday to you.
Other announcements.
And then the can
So, just to, I don't need the mic. I'll waste it. So, yeah. So, as was announced earlier, Mr. Tippett has graciously agreed to run for governor again. If you're unaware, he ran a very good campaign. He represented LP Texas well. I would think that most everybody agrees that he represented our principals very well. And I wanted to kick him off with some donations. So I agreed to donate $200 as long as we can raise another $200 in the room to make it at least $400 for him before we.
I'll match it.
I'll see your $200, sir.
So we gotta. Okay, so Tim's agreed to 200. Becca, what do you? You're throwing in 200? 200 from Andrew. 200 here. Anyone else? I mean, I didn't really turn this into an auction, but if we're doing it, another 200 from Ted Brown. Now, Wes Benedict is the man who's graciously accepted the responsibility of corralling Mr. Tippett and collecting all of the money and doing all of the legwork. So he's who you're going to want to talk to. He's even got his little square thing in his phone, so you can take that now. So anyone else want to be recognized, you can always do it anonymously, but if you want it to be on the record. Going? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Appreciate it.
All right, I believe that is, okay. Yes, we have time for one more announcement from the select member.
Oh, I was gonna actually move to adjourn.
That's always in order.
It is always in order. The
But
next
I-
thing on the agenda is public comment, though.
Oh, sorry, then I'm not doing that.
Okay. 10 minutes for public comment. Anybody in the gallery? Anybody visiting us today? Any staff members back there wish to speak?
Jenny, I wonder what she has to say.
Jenny.
Everyone take your name tags off.
Okay, so December 11th marks 1 year that I have been in my position, and all I wanted to do is say thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else from the gallery? Thank you all for, oh, yes, Liz.
Just so you know, we're also doing a thing for Jenny as a big thank you for her becoming a awesome employee for the state party. We want to give her a birthday gift like no other. So if you guys would like, you can go check out, there is a GoFundMe for Jenny to get a lifetime donor position for her. So go and check that, do a GoFundMe, it's on Jenny's Facebook page. And make sure that we can give her a gift that, shows our appreciation. So check that out, and thank you so much, Jenny.
Guys, that's not done already? I could have swore that was already gonna be done. Let's finish this up, come on.
All right, thank you. Is that it from the gallery? So there, public comment? All right, thank you all for being here and sitting through this. You did a good job today.
Move to adjourn.
I'm proud of you guys. Mr. Hanson.
Move to adjourn.
All right, the next thing on the agenda was adjournment, so. We are adjourned.